Call into order, regular Planning Commission meeting, Tuesday, February 13, 7 p.m. All right. First, can we get roll call, Martha, please?
Roll call. Commissioner Jose Flores.
Present.
Commissioner Bob Wallace.
Present.
Vice Chair Renee Mendonça.
Present.
Chair Steve Bassi.
Present.
For the record, all planning commissioners are in attendance.
All right. Can we all please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? You guys can have a seat. All right. Next on the agenda is introduction. So Gary, you can take it from here and maybe introduce yourself.
Sure. Thank you, Chair. My name is Gary Conti, and I'm now the city's new Community Development Director. Came on board, just shy of a month at this point. Still getting my feet wet and trying to figure all what's going on here in the community. It's been, in some cases, some fast-paced issues at hand. But let me basically introduce you. Prior to coming here, I was working for the city of Madera, so going north here. I've been a resident of this valley, in Merced in particular, for nearly 40 years, and I've raised my children throughout that time here. And I've been in the planning profession roughly about that time, or just a tad bit longer than that, both providing services from the private sector and consulting services to providing planning at the municipal level. So I've got a well-rounded background as far as aspects of planning, from the aspects of doing municipal planning, if you will, things that you see typically from a dais, and the types of projects and applications the community will be asking of you, doing a site plan review, for example, a use permit, variances, and so forth, having the opportunity to be on the dais as a commissioner for the city of Merced in the past as well, to also presenting projects on behest of applicants to the dais. So I understand both sides of the fence, if you will, about the mechanics in making decisions and actions that make communities unique and projects successful, just the same. So I, in addition to my background, I worked in, like I said, in the private sector, representing a number of different cities, both on master planning for their communities, working on project-specific issues, as well as providing that contract planning services that they may need, something similar to your last planner here who was on the contract type of services. So to that end, and also then planning and developing new communities or revitalizations of existing communities, corridor studies, and what have you, wastewater treatment plants, go on and on and on I could. And I have an in-depth background as far as the environmental and CEQA and NEPA. So with that, that's kind of who I am. I believe in having an open door policy. You're always welcome. I provided a card for you all that you can get in touch with me. Please don't be shy. I welcome any questions that you may have in regards to a staff report that may be prepared, and or a project that's of an interest that you need to know and be aware of before making some decisions as far as they go here at the dais. So again, I'm just next door, and unlike in the past where the contract planner was here on a limited basis, I'm here 5 days a week, unless there's a particular meeting that takes me out from an issue. So I'm actually a full-time employee for the city of Livingston as opposed to being on a contract. And I'm welcome to be working with all of you.
Welcome, Gary. We look forward to working with you. Any of the commissioners have something for Gary? No? All right.
I
Let's,
have a question, Chairman. Just a quick one, Gary. The previous planning commissioner, director, in our bylaws, the chair has a paragraph that says we can invite certain people from in the city hall, like Director of Public Works, et cetera. If we have that authority as the chair. However, when I did that 2 or 3 months back, before I relinquished the chair to Steve, the director, he never told the city council which members I wanted. And it's like, wait, we had questions that I think those 3 or 4 people could have maybe addressed. But if we don't get this packet till Friday and we don't review, you're gone by Monday, if I hadn't have known this one was coming up a month ahead, how do we address that so we can get those people here? And that's because that would affect our current chairman now. I mean, how do you, there's got to be a better option than saying the chair can request them or they have to come. That's basically what it says.
If Chair would like me to answer and respond to that particular question, but I'm more than happy to. My goal here is really to improve the timing of when you get your packets. Getting them the Friday or the Thursday before the meeting is, is a really tight schedule for both the bodies that have to make the decision as well as the community at large and the applicants that may be seeking a particular entitlement. My goal is to get that much earlier than that time. We are required and mandated by state laws to post our agendas 72 hours in advance, and so typically what you see is you get your agenda and your docket in hand. And with an agenda of today, well, that's not difficult, right? That's quick read. But if you're faced with 3 items on a public hearing item, and 2 of those include an environmental document and so on and so forth, that's a lot of reading to be asked of you to do in 3 days or less. And again, as a person being, as a commissioner in my past, having been dropped off on a Sunday and my expectation is to act on a Tuesday or Wednesday, yeah, it's virtually impossible, and the right thing to do at that point is ask for a continuance on the item, which again is not really, fair to the applicant seeking a particular request, and nor is it fair to the members of the dais who are trying to get things. And then back to your particular question, is the invitation of particular staff. I think it's part of the responsibility of in my particular position to make sure the right people here are in the audience as far as staff goes to be able to be prepared and respond to questions pertinent to a given project. And so if there are items that you have an interest into, certainly, one, I'm already trying to think ahead about that and invite those particular individuals to be a participant or available for questions. And secondly, is that if you have an interest and have an understanding of an issue that's greater than the planning department, and then to make sure that individual is invited, but also making sure that we're setting the agenda so that they are also aware of that need to be here and they can schedule their time accordingly just the same.
Thank you. That answers my question.
all right. So next is election of officers, election of new chair and vice chair. So with that,
I'll make a motion that the current chair and vice chair stay the same. Call for a second if somebody would.
I'll second that motion.
okay. Martha, do you want to record that, please? Or do we want to, yeah, so can we get a vote, or would they have to accept that first? If the ones that want to be, he said that the same chair and vice chair, right?
Yeah, chair and
You're
vice chair.
correct to both issues of whether those 2 nominated individuals are willing to take on those 2 positions. That would be the first to be asked. Second, then the motion and the second, and then call for the roll.
Okay. So I'm willing to stay as the chair, so I'm good with that. And
I'm willing to continue forward as the vice chair.
okay. Yeah, so can we call for a vote on that, please?
Roll call. Commissioner Jose Flores,
Yes.
Commissioner Bob Wallace,
Yes.
Vice Chair Renee Mendonça,
Yes.
Chair Steve Bassi.
Yes.
Motion approved by a vote of 4-0.
Okay. All right, so next we have public comment. Members of the audience, at this time, any person may comment on any item that is not on the agenda. Please state your name for the record while the Planning Commission encourages participation from the audience. No more than 5 minutes are allowed per discussion item. Topics not considered urgency matters may be referred to city staff and/or placed on the next agenda for consideration and/or action by the Planning Commission. Anybody in the audience that wants to make public comment at the moment?
Good evening, Diego Castillo, resident and local real estate developer. It's been a minute that I've been up here, but I wanted to kind of get your guys' feedback on what your guys' goals or plans are in regards to single family and multifamily as it pertains to one to four units, or small multifamily, 1 to 4 units to 1 to 8 units. As you guys are aware, California, Livingston, the Valley, we're short on rental housing stock and also stock for single family purchase. So I wanted to see what the expectation the planning would like to see. So if I engage, would say with planning, what's on our end, what are we supposed to expect as far as a timeline to, 1, set up an appointment, 2, to maybe get some feedback, and 3, to get some conditions to move a project forward. I deal with everybody between Merced County to Stanislaus County, in between. As far as the jurisdictions, we're pretty active. So I have an idea of what is typical for a response. But as I've been up here once before on a project that originally planning didn't want to approve, or wanted to set up in a way where it's going to take a year, and then we ended up doing, we challenged it, we brought it to Planning Commission, you guys agreed, and we're building on it now. So it just seems to me a lot of this red tape for housing and development in general is just there's so much red tape to get to the table. By the time we get to Planning Commission, sometimes it could be years. I got a project in mind that I think I've discussed with some of you guys, and I brought it to the council, 8 units for veteran housing. I've been working on that for 2.5 years. And it's always, if it's not one thing, it's another, and everybody gets different opinions and feedback. And it's a project that, at this point, I've been very patient, and I haven't discussed that with you guys openly, but now I want to say it's a project that I think, it's time to get done, and I'm going to be a little bit more aggressive about it. And again, the only reason I haven't done it, it's always, granted, we've had a lot of transition in the city in planning and whatnot, but I just want to know what the goals are now that we have a full-time staff. Before the response was, well, we only have 2 days a week, or we don't have enough time to get projects done. I just want to know what the expectation now that we have someone full-time. And again, if we're not getting the response, I'm going to come up here every council meeting, every planning commission meeting, and tell you guys that we're not getting the response or feedback that we would like. So that's it.
Can I make a comment?
Sure.
Yeah.
In August of last year, we did have a meeting, Diego, with the housing element, and we did an update, and they brought in maps and everything, and we were to choose the areas to where we thought duplexes, triplexes, single-family dwellings could go. And I know there was a gentleman from Rincon Consulting come in and that. What happened after that?
I think you and Andres, I think you both attended it.
We attended one meeting, right?
Yeah, I don't know, after that, there was no follow-through, or we didn't receive anything after that.
Right. After that, I didn't receive anything either.
Yeah, I was here
If it
too
was
for
going
that
to
meeting.
continue that, because filling in the spots on Main Street and other streets where duplexes, triplexes could be put is a great idea. So we looked at every one of the opportunities. We also looked at if we were to need to move, maybe request moving some of the city lines out, if we needed to branch out and that. So I think we need to find out where that went to, where the results of that went to.
Yeah, I was here for that meeting too, and we all gave feedback of where it
Yeah.
should go. And we have several, personally, I have several projects that are infill lots that already have, existing infrastructure as far as utilities, water, sewer. And like I said, I have 3 to come to mind that right now that I'm trying to get through, and I'm just not getting response or feedback on them. So I want to see what, if, is the planning commission still open toward, are they still moving forward to where they want development, or have things changed? Because like I said, I have 3 infill projects right now that, we could get going, as soon as planning would be ready. So.
Yeah, I think in terms of planning, I know that the development-wise, this is what we're looking forward to, right? And this is why we are put up here, right? So I can tell you that, yeah, we want to push forward, we want to continue to develop, and now having Gary here 5 days a week, I think it is going to help streamline some of our projects. So that is our goal. Maybe, Gary, if you can kind of look at maybe how we can streamline some of those, development-wise and that red tape and all that, I get it. Sometimes those things are by law and regulatory stuff, but if there's other agencies are doing it, maybe it's by ordinance or what it is, but maybe we can help out some of our developers because we do have a lot of vacant land that should be infilled, right? But I think that's a goal of mine and the commission. I would think it's the same as well.
And I think the state, because we have to satisfy our percentage each year of homes, affordable housing and that. Diego, you mentioned something about veterans housing and that.
Yeah, I have a project with the old Mason building. It's
The Masonic Temple.
Yeah.
Okay.
We proposed that, and when Randy Hatch was still here, so that'll date how long this project's been here. But he did the research, gave me an outline of what it would require when he was here to get done, and then he left. And to be honest with you, since he's left, I haven't been able to get through to get it done. But it's a simple project. It's a repurposing of the existing footprint. We're not adding square footage. It's 8
Right.
1-bedroom, 1-bath, 500 square feet units. He already gave me an outline of what needed to be done. We actually gave him a deposit for the application back in 2021, and as of right now, it hasn't moved forward. And again, I met with Gary on this project about a month ago, about almost going on a month.
Okay.
Same thing, I haven't got any feedback, so I'm just wondering if, is a commission not wanting to do any new development? And if that's the case, then, let us know so we know where to focus our energy. But, that's a perfect project that if I take Livingston out of the equation, I bring that to anybody else up and down the state. They'd be rolling out the red carpet, because there's not very much veteran housing to begin with. And like I said, we bought that 2 years ago, and we're still here, and we haven't been able to get through the finish line. So if you now that we have a new full-time planner, some direction of how to get some of these projects, to you guys faster. We submitted a full application that, a month ago. I would hope that we can get it to you guys within the next maybe council, planning commission meeting. And again, when I talked to, last time that project was kind of stalled was since we met, when we met Randy. With the other 2 people that were here, it was always, I would give one information, they would give me something, I would give it back, and it was always back and forth. But I gave Gary kind of the outline of what Randy gave me at the time, 2 years ago or 2.5 years ago. And since then, the state has issued additional legislation that makes these projects easier. Everybody wants repurposing of existing vacant commercial buildings, and again, infrastructure's in, water's in, sewer's in. Everything's there. If we got a building permit, in the next 30, 60 days, we start building right away. So, and I talked to the Veterans Department in Fresno and in Merced, and they're saying, hey, you build it today, I'll have it filled for you tomorrow. So there's not a shortage of people that need veteran housing. So. And in the county, there's nothing going on. We'd be the first to have a project like that.
So Gary, at our next meeting, or would you be able to send something to the planning commissioners to let us know where that project stands?
Yes, I'd be happy to do that and to provide kind of a synopsis, if you will, as to your process and how you, as a city, engage in moving residential projects, or any projects for that matter, through the community's efforts. Just as a quick anecdotal review of your ordinance as it stands today, virtually every project that you engage with is subject to a discretionary action by the Planning Commission and often the City Council. In other words, you're making a recommendation to City Council to either to approve or deny a particular project. That in alone builds a lot of time in the process to go from an application to a decision by the elected body. You know, in general, you have between a planning commission and a city council, because of mandates and noticing and things of that nature, you're almost sometimes looking at 30 days between those two decision bodies, let alone that what's required in advance of that. But like I said, if I won't say all, that's a bad word to use, but most projects are subject to a discretionary action. There are, as Diego noted, a number, better yet, there's a plethora of legislative acts made by the state that are to facilitate various types of housing in the entirety of the state. In essence, have taken home rule away from you and applied certain requirements mandated by the state to fast track certain types of projects, but they have to meet certain criteria. In many cases, the builder is, or the developer is required to enter in an instrument that pretty much commits the property or the development into about a 40-year term for meeting the affordability rates of the low and very low income strata, and to ensure that it's not being sold or being rented out to market rate conditions. And so there are certain things that are required by that, that if the project is aligned to those, then we can facilitate that. And I will get into one of the projects as a discussion here at the latter part about ongoing projects now happening, where that in fact is taking place.
Okay.
Okay?
Yeah. This, again, we're not seeking any type of government housing. We're doing this privately because it's something we want to, it's a pilot program that we want to take on. If it works, we're going to scale it to larger projects in the community. But again, I mean, the outline, and Randy spent enough time looking through the municipal code, and I mean, we have, based on what he sent me, we have everything to go on this project. Like I mentioned to you, the only thing we need is confirm the parking requirements, which I believe we have more than's required, and if there's any green space that's going to be required. That's it. Other than that, we have a full application for you guys. So I would like to get this in the next planning commission as possible, because again, it's a project we've been waiting for 2.5 years. So I mean, you tell me what you need, we can have, turn around within a week. And again, I've been very passionate. I mean, this is the first time I bring it up to planning commission, but this is one of the examples where, I mean, builder like me, 2.5, we've been sitting on that property vacant for over 2 years. It should have been developed. We should have had 8 veterans renting for at least the last 12 months, But it's always, if it's not one thing, it's another. And again, I engage planning commission. My question is like, what's a reasonable time? Are we supposed to wait, a week to get a response? Is it 2 weeks? Is it a month? Is it 3 months? I can tell you what other communities do, but I want to see what's the expectation like here in Livingston, Especially now, like I said, the response before was, hey, I'm here 1 or 2 days a week. Well, now that's not the case. We have someone in full-time. What's the expectation going to be like to get a response? So that's it. Thank you.
Cool, thank you for your comments. Anybody on the phone that's called in? Nope, all right. Now we're going to move on to item number 7, review of minutes from the September 12th of 2023 meeting. Everybody have a chance to look those over?
I want to make a comment, and on the record, there is a clerical error on the approved date. It should be February 13th, 2024, instead of 23. So I made the changes on my end, but on your agenda, it has 2023.
For what was it for?
For the, so page
It would,
8, where it says approved,
oh,
it has the
Right.
wrong year, so.
go.
Just want to,
Thank you.
Oh, I see, okay. All right, any motions to approve the September 12th, 2023 minutes?
After reading back through and remembering that meeting, that was one of those meetings where we got the packet rather late. It was rather complex. The items for the green zone, the rezoning and everything. But I looked back through and I didn't see anything in the minutes that were contradictory to what my notes had said, so.
I did have actually a question reviewing this. In regards to the green zone, where it was motioned on page number 7, the first item, where Renee and myself were yeses on that. It was motioned not to recommend approval. And then the other 3
Were to approve.
approved, so it passed, right? I thought it didn't pass.
it did not pass.
It did not pass.
So that's why it says motion failed. It says motion failed and carried 2-3. So, yeah, no, it did not pass. So it was to not recommend approval.
Okay,
Right.
all right. Okay.
If I may interrupt here. So you have an action, it was a motion not to recommend approval, basically, in essence, to deny the tentative subdivision map application. Perhaps what it should note is that you took action, but the motion didn't fail. Your motion did pass to deny that action.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, it kind of reads a little.
Just rewording it to.
Yeah, right now it reads as though somebody made the motion to go ahead not to approve the project, and for a lack of another action or second, it failed,
Yeah, because,
but it did not fail. You guys actually took action on it, and so the motion did pass.
of not.
Am I correct on that? And you did-
Did not,
It did not pass.
So it would have been to a 3-2 vote?
Yes.
Yeah, then it would have been a motion, the motion, it's not a failed, it's a motion did pass. It would be
Yeah.
a motion to approve, not to recommend. Or
So,
basically to deny
was
the
it just
project.
Renee and myself that didn't want to push it forward,
Correct.
but then the rest did?
Oh, wait, okay.
no, no.
No, no.
Depends on which motion now you're talking.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this motion for the tentative map, somebody made a motion to, in essence, deny the project.
Yep.
Okay? There was a second on that motion? Okay, and then you took a vote at that point, and so on that was the vote 3-2 to deny the project.
That was, yep, that is,
Okay.
that is correct,
That's-
as I remember it.
Is that, am I correct on that? Mr.
No,
Chair?
no, because I was I remember saying that, no, I don't want the project to push forward because there were some conditions that we had set into it, right?
Sure.
So Renee and myself were the standouts of, hey, we don't want this without, but I thought the rest of you guys said yes, with the conditions.
There was a condition, if I remember correctly, Stephen, I didn't research that back, I should have, but there were 3 separate things we voted on.
Yeah, yep.
We approved on the first motion, we disapproved on the second motion, and we approved the third.
Yep.
This is exactly how I remember it. And since we did it that way, Miguel kept trying to tell me we couldn't do it because we approved the others. I goes, well, we've already approved this. Since that meeting in September, the applicant for the green zone pulled his request and they're redoing it because of the issue, how many lots could be plot.
Because we had
That was
recommended that
exactly
they go
it.
back and rethink.
Yep.
Yeah, because we were saying that, for myself, I was saying that maybe separate the cannabis versus non-cannabis retail. So, if there's a karate place and there's a cannabis place right next door, there could be some, issues or whatever.
Yeah, our concern was that each
All
of
the
those
lots could
different-
be
All the
pot.
lots could be, yes.
That's what.
Yeah, commingled together.
That's what hung us up. Yep.
So I don't think this is correct, because if that was the case, 2-3, then it would have passed, but that wasn't, because the majority would have been 3 then. So I think we got to look into that.
Mayor, for a second?
Yes.
Chairman,
Yep.
may I suggest maybe just here for a motion, not to take a motion, but just for a straw poll here, so for clarity wise?
Yep.
And I know the members of this dais are slightly different, or are they identical to that night?
No, they're identical, however, we're missing Andres.
Yeah.
Andres, okay. Okay, with the commissioners here on the, just to raise your hand. So of the commissioners, how many of you were, in your motion, were implying that the tentative map, basically to deny the tentative map?
Yes, deny, tentative.
Deny.
Yep.
And how many were to approve the tentative map?
No, I didn't.
Three
I
here
know.
with the no?
Yeah, we voted not to approve it because of the pot. But it
think
was
there
the
was some that
second
said-
one.
You were, okay, so you
Yeah.
motioned, so there were just, so
I think it should have been 3-2.
So Andrea and yourself then were the two members that said that you wanted to pass?
Yes.
Okay, because one of the two things we can do tonight is either we can make this correction and make those stipulates and then approve the minutes, or if you wish, we can certainly defer this until the next planning commission and correct the language based on the audio tape.
Yes.
That's
So
up to
can
your
you-
leisure
Can you say
here.
the first one again?
Oh, basically, we can go ahead and you guys can make a motion to approve the minutes based on the corrections.
Okay.
Somebody verbalize that as to what the correction should be and make that as a motion, and then someone would second that, and
Okay.
you can go ahead and take that and make that then an action to take a vote to whether all parties agree or not. Or you can ask for staff to take this back and make the corrections and represent this based on the information of the audio.
Okay, yeah, so I'll make a motion to accept with the changes or the corrections of the 3-2, the 3 being myself, Renee, and Bob Wallace, and then the 2 nays being Jose Flores and Andres.
I'll second that motion.
You're saying that not to have the motion fail. The motion did not fail.
The motion did,
No, because the motion was to recommend not to approve.
yeah, so it would be the other way around.
The motion to
Yeah,
approve.
so a motion to approve the.
The denial.
the Denial, correct,
Right.
yes.
Okay.
So now can I second that motion?
Yes.
I second that motion.
Can we get a roll call, please?
Yes, roll call. Commissioner Jose Flores,
Yes.
Commissioner Bob Wallace,
Yes.
Vice Chair Renee Mendoza,
Yes.
Chair Steve Bassi.
Yes.
Motion approved by a vote of 4-0.
All right. All right, so correspondence, anything from you, Gary?
Excuse me. Mr. Chair, we did not receive any correspondence.
Okay. All right, moving on to number 9, conflict of interest declaration. I don't think there's going to be any conflict of interest declarations going on, so no. All right, 10, public hearing. Consent items, there's none. Non-consent items, there's none. Moving on to number 11, other matters. There's no other matters unless there's something that we want to discuss on the dais up here. Any of the commissioners have anything?
I got something.
Okay.
Is there any way to get updates on, because I know we have a lot of projects that have been approved and are either pending permits and stuff like that. Is there any way to get just a list of the updates so that as we're planning, we know what's being done?
Yep.
Because I know like our AMPM is almost done. I know that the Moonglow's probably sometime in the future. I know the apartment complexes that were approved in the past, I know there's delays for various reasons, but maybe there's a way to just anything we approved that kind of get a running list of where are we at so that as we plan for the future, we know where everything is at and gives us a better idea of future events of what we're going to approve that kind of coincide with what's going on and what we've done in the past. I don't know if that's something the commissioners would benefit from, but I know I would like that 'cause I know there's a lot of stuff going on right now, so.
I think that is a great idea.
Yeah.
And it doesn't, I don't think, I know in the past, maybe a few of our last meetings, we started seeing one of those, the project charts.
Right.
But sometimes it might just be easier if you guys want to email it out when staff has it and maybe periodically just send out an email to us. That'd be great. Just kind of keep us apprised of what's happening in the community as well on the planning side of things, so.
Mr. Chair, I'd be happy to do that, just for your information. I will be doing a presentation next month before the City Council, just on that very matter, as far as active projects, and I'm happy to share that presentation to you as well, and we'll forward that information as to the status of projects that have been submitted for application and the status of them, as well as those projects that are moving in the pipeline for building permits. So you have a sense of what's going on. Happy also to share with you as information is presented to let you know what's coming in the track and expand that. And as you know, this is my first planning commission, and to get the feel of this, of the members of this dais, and if that's your desire to have an update on a monthly basis as to all the types of projects that are in the pipeline per se, being considered, be happy to do that for you.
All right. Any other members, commissioners, any other comments? No? All right, moving on to number 12, report of the planning director.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. A little bit just about what we were just talking about, but it won't be to the extent that you're seeking at this moment. But this is similar to, I'm just trying to follow what my predecessor, Miguel, was providing you an information in kind of the structure format. And again, probably will making some tweaks towards this end, what I do present and how I present it in coming planning commission meetings. Recent city council actions, just for your edification. On November 7th, the City Council approved a second amendment to the Mintier Harness Planning Consultants contract for the preparation of the general plan update and the accompanying environmental impact report. Just a little background, and I apologize if I'm repeating information that you may be well aware of at this point, but I just don't know the depth that you may have the information. The general plan update has started a while back, let's just basically say about 2 years ago, and then installed. The city went back to the consultant and also considered alternatives towards that direction, and ultimately settled into doing an amendment to that contract that did exist to further the work that had been done thus far, rather than, restarting it from ground zero. So we are now moving earnest with that. We have a standing biweekly meeting with the consultants and have been working towards that end. And one of the things that will be on the horizon here is a joint meeting, and I'll get into that as we get down to that on the horizon. In addition to that action, and looking back since the last planning commission that you folks had, the other action was on February 6th by the City Council, directing staff to review and update the city's municipal code as it relates to home occupation permits or in consideration of allowances of cottage industries, which are basically small businesses, in particular food prep, food servicing type preparations within the homes to operate under those guise. So that is a task that the City Council has bequeathed to staff to go ahead and address and update that particular ordinance. That ordinance, as typical with the title, I think your title is Title 5. Correct me if I'm wrong, it's Title 5.
Correct.
Any modifications or recommendations to that would, of course, be presented to Planning Commission for your recommendations and considerations before it's moved to City Council. So I do not have a timeline at this point, but certainly the great amount of that task will be in part with our city attorney and the planning department. And ultimately, they'd be presented to you for presentation to the public at large as well. Housekeeping items. There are some updates, of course, to the members roster sheet that you all have in front of you. As mentioned earlier, Commissioner Andres Fuentes submitted a letter of resignation indicating his term was expiring on December 31st of last year, and thus we have that vacancy. The other thing you'll note on there are term expirations and the adjustments made now that reflect, like on the vacancies for our planning commissioners and our alternative planning commissioners. We are, as the city, still continuing to seek and solicit applications to fill those 3 positions, and they are for the planning commissioner with a term that would expire now December 31st, year 2027. An alternative planning commissioner that also would expire as December 31st, 2027, and an alternative planning commissioner with a term that would expire this year at the end of December 31st. So those are the 3 openings we have. And I know that puts kind of an immense pressure on you folks in recognizing the 3 vacancies that we have. That almost commits you folks to be here full time and not take a vacation date when planning commissions are scheduled, because the risk of not having a quorum and then taking actions on particular projects. So I do apologize to that end. We'll see what we can do to enhance the advertisements of trying to get people to put in an application for consideration to be a member of the commission.
Real quick on that, sorry Gary, to interrupt you, but on that, any way that we can maybe send or ask staff if we can send those vacancies in maybe like the water bill or something like that to get some more traction? Because I know that it's posted at the city hall and stuff, but are we reaching the target audience? I don't think so.
And absolutely, it's a great recommendation. I don't know our formalities and how our utility billing goes out, but I've used for other projects purposes, for like taking surveys, we would place that into, or notices of public workshops, we'd place that in the utility bill, because that does reach out virtually to all residents, certainly if they're receiving municipal water services and sewer, as well as to businesses, businesses owners, depending where the mail is being directed, or to the tenants of those particular buildings, to try to engage or inform the public in its best manner. Certainly we can do that. I know we have the other mediums, we have a Facebook and, we have our website. I know it's on the website, seeking these particular openings on the commission. But yeah, I will go ahead and reach out to our billing and to see if we can incorporate something with that.
Yeah, we've sent out other media stuff and all that stuff through the mail. So I think it's probably the right thing to do, or some way to maybe create a QR code of application, get to the application, just get creative, all right? And I think we're dealing with just expecting people to walk up to City Hall and read every piece of paper that's on on a wall, that's probably not going to get the job done.
I would probably agree with you. The tendency is people go in there for a particular purpose of business, and they go to the counter and address that, and if they're being attended to at that point, they're not going back to the bulletin board or into the slots where there are flyers available for the public. Certainly, it's a great idea, and I'll address that with
Bob, you have something?
our financing.
Yeah, Steve, a good example of that is Parks and Rec Commission, because they send out their flyer, they get all the publicity through Parks and Recs, and they mention it right there, that when they have vacancies and ongoing, but the Planning Commission has never had a step like that, that we can do versus Parks and Rec, because theirs is outstanding flyers, but I don't know how we could do one similar or a detachment onto theirs, but then they'll be mad because we could pull somebody that was thinking to go into them would want to come here. So I just don't know, but I mean, theirs, you don't miss it. But the water bill idea is excellent because everybody's going to get the water bill.
Yeah.
And they had a whole calendar of stuff that was going on for the whole year, so that why can't they put a little flyer in for the Planning Commission? I agree, that's a great possibility for us. We've never before had 3 vacancies, ever, in my last 9 years.
Excellent ideas, and we'll pursue those. And continuing on with the report, as you probably saw, there's some subtle changes right now with your Planning Commission agenda. There are some additional changes that will need to take place. The ones that have taken place at this moment was the placement of call to order. Also was taken, what was removed from there was the discussion about COVID. Those particular regulatory requirements have been rescinded from the state and are no longer applicable. There's another element that will need to be corrected on here that caught my glean, identifying consents underneath public hearing. Public hearings imply that we are giving public notice to that, to all parties, and that is not the case on a consent. It's clear in the government code that the consent items actions are independent of a public hearing item. They are not public hearings. And so that has to be apart from the listing or headers of a public hearing. If a member of the dais or a member of the audience wishes to pool an item for discussion, that you have the ability to do so and have that discussion prior to the public hearing and take that as a vote separate, independent of all the other remaining items that might be under consent. And that would, like I said, open for discussion and action independent of the items that you would collectively approve. And once that action is taken care of on that one item, and then you move on to the next point of discussions. And so if it's public hearing items, you would then move into the public hearing items. So see some changes a little bit there, and I'll bring it up to so that we're in compliant with the state regulatory requirements. The other are, as some of you have found, we have a new city email procedures, and I'll turn that over to Martha to explain a little bit about what to be expected on that.
Yes, so the city, in order for us to, sorry, hold my notes. Anyways, I think I spoke to each one of you regarding this. So everyone who has a city email will now change, and your name won't change, but it will be livingstonca.gov. And this is you will have a token, and this is to verify that it is you. There's instructions regarding that. However, I think Steve Bassi tried and it wasn't working, so I will go ahead and contact IT and have them contact you individually to have you guys set up for this. It is very important to keep this token safe, so that way you guys have access to your emails. If trying to get emails on a personal laptop or any other device. I'm not quite sure how it works with the email on your phone, but I will double check that with IT.
Is this like, Martha, like a two-part verification?
That is what it is.
Yeah, I think with that new email address, I think everybody probably needs a new password.
Yeah.
That's just my understanding,
Yeah.
but I could be totally wrong, so there has
So-
to be like a,
So that is correct. So I will double check with IT
Okay.
and make sure we get you guys going.
Same email password they have been using, but you're saying you need to create a new one?
I think so. I tried mine and maybe I
Yeah.
need it fixed in my phone.
Yeah, I would encourage everybody to provide a new updated password. Just because your system doesn't call for an update to your password, you can always certainly update your password at any given time and do so. I'll admit, as the new kid on the block here, they were quickly changing the program platform for me, going to a 365. And there were some challenges with that because they forgot to delete the prior platform, and so the two were competing with one another. It was a wreck. It's still, in fact, I think, I'm hoping that they actually worked all the bugs out today. They've been working at it even late this morning, whereas I could not really access email. I saw them, I mean, as a message, that somebody was sending a message, but to open it, couldn't do it.
Yeah.
And if it were, so if there was an attachment to it or whatever made the case, couldn't take it on. And so I'm, having to, go through the emails that are now going to me directly, and then I've still got about 560 emails that are unanswered that were addressed to Miguel at this time. They go on, plus all the other ones that perhaps that they have been opened, but I don't know whether they've been addressed or not. And so that in itself is a chore. So, but there's a lot of new things happening with the 360. You'll find that with your email operations, there should be more opportunity, and you also get the chat component just the same. So. Again, Martha will certainly give you a helping hand if you're all are going to have some struggling components with that. If you're comfortable or with this, electronic devices or not. What's on the horizon? We don't anticipate any scheduled items for the regularly scheduled Planning Commission in March. March the 12th is your next regular scheduled Planning Commission. Doesn't mean you have a day off. Because we are planning a joint City Council Planning Commission for the general plan update. And what will be presented to you that evening, which is intended to be either late March or early April, and it will be a Tuesday. And it seems to be, so we don't disrupt your other days of your week. What will be presented to you are some land use alternatives that had been worked out, and this would be prior to my engagement here with the city of Livingston, but there'll be some land use alternatives. There'll be, in fact, 3 of them. One's kind of like a baseline where we stand today with some modifications. Another will be looking at holding the line, if you will, with today's sphere of influences in the urban boundaries and intensifying the land uses within itself. And another looking at further expansion of our growth boundaries. And so those things, it's not to say we'll be picking one or the other. Certainly the idea with alternatives and alternative concepts is to share these ideas and allow, pick a little bit of this and pick a little bit of that, and you end up with what would be ultimately a preferred plan. What looks and resonates with everyone, and ultimately leads to developing a more refined preferred plan and direction where the city wants to go. That's kind of in part what we're looking for, is where the decision body is wishing the city to be in the next 20 years. This is a 20-year horizon that we're looking at. Certainly, 5-year ranges, we're pretty good about, what's going on. You get out to 10 years and things get a little cloudy, and certainly by the time you hit 15, 20, you're taking your best judgments and guesses at that point, and as far as direction on land use massing, as well as policies and the like. Great examples of that. Who would have thought at this point in time we would have being planned an ACE rail station stop here in Livingston? It wasn't thought out when the last plan came around. There are a number of things that were probably not thought out when the last plan was prepared in 1999. That's a ways back. Yeah. The life of a general plan is about 20 years. Really solidly, you need to start looking at updating your general plan in a 10 to 15-year horizon. We're behind, literally behind. So I've been having some robust discussions with our consultant now that that Second Amendment has been processed and they're able, to go ahead and proceed with these things. Recognizing the importance of time, I certainly didn't go into it with great depth and say, hey, here's, again, a new set of eyes looking at this. Why don't you change the lands here in this direction, that direction, so on and so forth. I think it's important to present that to the Planning Commission as well as the City Council and to the public, because they also have an opportunity to weigh in as far as the direction of what they'd like to see their community to be. That will allow those issues to be flushed out. Certainly the input then working with our consultants and moving forward, those ideas we can flesh into what I refer to as a preferred plan that would enable then to begin some of the environmental work. What will be part of that, we'll be looking at the build-out scenarios underneath some of those conditions. So you can see by going this kind of a direction, the population estimates will be like this, or you go that direction, you can expect the population estimates to be this, based on some logical and prospective information such as, growth trends and the like, and development interests in our community and how we adapt to that. So that's coming on the horizon. I think it's one of your largest ticket items to be looking forward to. Now, there was a discussion that brought up a little earlier. We're also doing the housing element update. That's independent of the general plan, which is mandated by the state as well. And there's certain protocols that go in that. And sadly to say, I don't know if that's the right term to use, but often your general plan is this thick, and and the housing element, which is a component of the general plan, is that thick, and it's what we're doing, and you're probably all aware of this. We're doing is a multi-jurisdictional housing element, meaning that all incorporated communities and the county are engaged in preparing a single housing element, which then basically will cover the big premises, but also it'll have chapters specific to the communities that they represent for considerations of responding to the housing needs. It was referenced about needing to provide a certain amount of housing and types of housing. Yeah, we refer to that as the RHNA, Regional Housing Allocations, and that'll be certainly part of that process. This general plan will be responsible as we move forward. So you got this kind of going together, but we have certain timelines to meet with the housing element, which is far more robust than it is with the general plan. And quite frankly, we won't make the target that was entailed for this community for their housing element, but certainly we're going to be within reasonable distance to following that. Is that our general plan has to provide sufficient land mass to satisfy meeting those RHNA numbers. So we have to provide enough land mass to make sure that we provide housing for all economic strata that is in our community. So that is a part of that. That's what the housing elements is very important. And then that's how it dovetails with the general plan overall. So the colors on the map, if you will, have to make sense in both a balance between the housing demands and responsibilities, the amenities that are necessary to support that housing population, as well as the businesses to support, the rooftops, which kind of enable those businesses to stay afloat Absent certain amount of rooftops, then businesses cannot be successful because the masses aren't there for those particular or specific types of commercial purposes. And do we provide sufficient land for employment bases beyond just commercial, such as industry, manufacturing, or something of that nature? As a planner, your ideal role is to be proactive as opposed to being reactive. It is better to be for your community to be in a proactive position than being reactive, particularly when it comes down to providing the land masses, how the circulation needs to be laid out so that you're not in a position to say, gosh, shoulda, woulda, coulda, and darn, we missed the opportunity to make that road go that way to serve a better good. We cut it off because because we did a project-by-project type development, and we didn't think of the big picture. That's the idea with the general plan. And then allows you then to move forward your master planning efforts of dealing with, the sewer, the water, the drainage, and all those factors that are important to support and serve those types of uses without having that general plan and the concept of what do we want to be in the next 20 years and where do we want to go. You can't perform those other exercises. So that's coming to you. One of the projects that you're probably well aware of, and this kind of alludes a little bit to kind of the points that Diego had laid out a little earlier here, projects, entitlements and the like for housing. The self-help enterprise project that some of you may be aware of that is being planned for the southeast corner of Winton and B Street, multi-family house and affordable housing project. As such, as an affordable housing project, and they are going through and getting certain types of funding mechanisms, and they meet certain criteria. In other words, they make a commitment to ensuring that, in fact, that housing project will meet certain economic strata requirements. That project, it will no longer require and these are parts of because of changes in the state legislation. This project will no longer require a general plan amendment or rezone, a conditional use permit, or for that matter, a site plan and design review. Wow. Because that particular piece of property is designated as a general plan, commercial, as well as zoned for commercial development. In today's environment, based on some of the, again, in part with state legislation that has taken effect, you need not go ahead and, if the property is designated commercial, residential is now allowed without forcing the requirements for doing a general plan amendment or a rezone towards that end. You can formally build.
Is that only for commercial?
On commercial properties. It also means also on school properties. So if a school has a piece of property and they wish, somebody had struck them with an interest to go ahead and build residential, that too does not require a general plan amendment or a rezone to make that happen. There's a lot of things that have taken place. There's a plethora of legislative laws that are enacted and the timing of those as to what can and needs to be done to streamline housing in the state of California. They're pursuing this under the entitlements now subject to and limited by the California Assembly Bill 2011, which pursuant to AB 2011 is now a by right project. It's ministerial, means it does not have discretionary actions by a planning commission or that of a city council. So again, this project will not come before you. It's basically going, it's like that Monopoly game, go around, bypass, go and, lose one turn or whatever the case might be, or gain 5 spaces. They'll submit their plans and their plan sets and we'll be at the building stage. We'll have a gander at that plan set when that does happen. Now, cities had the opportunity to look a little bit of that because it was submitted as those various entitlements that I mentioned earlier. More importantly, it's also exempt from CEQA. so it's not subject to any environmental requirements.
That project or any?
That particular project, because of the, again, the commitment that it'll be for, and they'll be locked in by, in agreements that they will have a commitment to provide for low-income housing, very low, and meet special needs, if you will, towards that approach. So, somebody can't come to the city hall and just say, hey, I'm building a housing for low income or very low income and expect the same type of treatment. It won't happen. That doesn't happen. If I want to meet a particular need for a particular social group or a designated type of group, just by saying that, you don't get these kind of privileges. You have to make bona fide commitments. They are in agreements, they are at acts that you sign into, with the city, the state, and so on and so forth, that lock you into long-term commitments to this, to ensure that, in fact, the type of housing isn't going to be served for those particular needs. I know you all were looking forward to have your chance to review that particular project. You just won't have it at this point in time. There are other projects, of course, that are the multifamily that the city is still pursuing. The Terra Santa project, because for some of you have been involved with, that is now moving into the building permit stage as we're now reviewing the improvement plans for that, both on the building side as well as the civil plans for off-site improvements. So housing is complicated. You would think that we've simplified it in a manner, but we've actually in some ways made it very complicated. There are actions that enable you to streamline projects if you meet particular, again, criteria, and then there are other projects that are still subject to discretionary or municipal rule as opposed to being trumped by state legislative actions. Anybody have any questions per that before
I think it
kind of
just
move
kind
on?
of bottlenecks the building department and the staff side of things, because it kind of, when those bypasses happen, at least it kind of takes that, the 30 to 45 days, what you're saying, to come to a planning side, and then you know what I mean, and then at that time, another project can, it can run through the building phase, but if it just bypasses everything and sits in the building side, now you just have the project sitting there.
Yeah, well, in theory, you're still planning, you're still getting involved. I mean, there's, the interaction when somebody actually comes in and says, I propose this type of a project under these particular benefits. We still have an opportunity, more or less like a site plan review or site plan review and design. They're still obligated to comply with our code, such that, when this is a project where they, in fact, we're asking, in essence, some variances from our code in regards to building height, fence type, parking, and things of that nature. Those things are off the table now. You have to comply with the ordinance. You don't get to deviate from the ordinance.
Yeah.
You have to comply with our design guidelines. You don't get to deviate from our guidelines. You have to now comply with everything. That's the flip side.
So like the aesthetic side, we still have an input on that?
Yeah, they still have to comply with the city's design guidelines.
Okay.
So, for example, your guidelines say that mechanical equipment is prohibited to be on a rooftop. So they could not put an AC unit on the roof. It would have to be a ground-mounted split unit or something of that nature, or an attic-mounted internally, as far as that goes. So those type of things still have to be applied. If there are conditions as far as window types and things of that nature, they still have to comply with our design guidelines. So those things are still in play. You don't get to usurp those type of deals. You don't get to usurp our ordinance and our standards that may be defined in there as for example, like, number of parking spaces per unit, things of that nature, or by bedroom.
The only fear I have now is that they can bypass us is that, good example, they can build anywhere, so whether it's commercial or not, we have an apartment complex go in and then all of a sudden a liquor store that goes right next to that apartment complex or school project. And so when we get bypassed, that's kind of one of those things where I mean, I understand it's the law, it's not, has nothing to do with this, but I think this is now more of a critical thing where if new infrastructure is coming in within our town or city, that we at least know about it, so that when we're, again, approving new buildings or permits that, you know, with regards to occupancy, that we don't put, again, a weed shop next to a school just because we didn't know that that school was going to be built, you know, within the same timeframe. If you know what I mean.
Yeah, and those are those kind of reservations and concerns that cities are having throughout. You know, there's that frustration where the autonomy of the communities have been taken away, and, you know, which people get concerned about what ultimately is going to be built in the community that may not have been a good fit or in the right location and then some. So, and then there was another issue that was presented to City Council just about the week of the, just right, pretty much my first council showing up coming on board here, and it was a city water system capacity assessment. There was discussion about the water availability in our community. There is an issue. There was a study, as I mentioned, it's a city water systems capacity assessment that in essence said that this, given the number of approved projects but yet not developed, we will have an impact on our water supply or water demand. The system's the city's water does not have an adequate capacity right now to meet the increased maximum daily demand for new development, nor does it have adequate capacity to meet the peak flow demands for water. This is projects, again, that have all been approved. So there is a finite capacity that we can serve, and that'll be addressed as we go by a project basis at this point in time. From projects that had already received a can and will serve for water services and will obviously be honored. Those that did not have them or have them expired because of lack of moving forward with their project and they have turned out, they may be less fortunate to be moving forward. And so to some degree, so there's a race to the finish line on certain projects, but we don't have enough water capacity right now to service everything that's been approved, let alone that has not been entitled and been before you for consideration for action. Those are things you're going to need to weigh in. What that does a little bit as well, now don't get me wrong, the city is making and looking into corrective measures. We are, the city water assessment has been prepared. We're now taking it to the next step of trying to ascertain just in fact, taking those numbers and putting into what we in essence refer to as unit equivalents to single-family homes, and there's a generation number for water use for a single-family home that can then the coefficients works its way into multifamily and public service type buildings, commercial, industry, and so on and so forth. And so we were able then to go ahead and create this kind of matrix. We can now begin to chip away and find out where we stand as we continually go down. And the goal, of course, is not to get to zero. We are now looking at projects in a different light, as opposed, typically you saw in your conditions of approval, applicants responsible for getting a can and will serve letter, and that was the condition pertinent to water. You'll see a change to that, to which projects may be clearly expressed in the conditions of approval as to what they need to do in order to come on board, whether it might be the need to contribute financially to infrastructure pertinent to water, to construct the actual facility, let's say, for example, is actually putting in a new well in the city, or upsizing pipes that would now service from that new well the area of benefit, and figure out what that pro rata share responsibility is to that individual things. It also changes, unfortunately, CEQA. But often when a project of certain size and type there are roughly about 40 some odd exemptions available, category exemptions as you as we call them, and you take, often in your actions, you probably approve a CAT exempt for a project. Because we are in this dilemma here, it's going to be unfortunate, well, we were unlikely going to be able to pass category exemptions for projects because we are unable to serve or we have this impact to the community. So that'll force projects to do more or less go to the next degree, if you will, and doing the initial studies where they probably would not had to do it in the past. That's going to put a bigger burden on projects, both in time and in dollars. Now, again, as I mentioned, the city isn't, sitting on its laurels and saying, what do we do next? Certainly, we have a water well going in construction as we speak, well number 8A, along with a storage tank. It will improve some of the capacity, but again, it will not make up for all that we've already approved here in the community. And then there are other plans being identified in a corrective action plan, both in looking at water supply and also addressing the other issue about our water quality. In essence, our water does need to be treated, as we have particular contaminants that we have to address. We do in the fashion of doing treatment, wellhead treatments, or in a form of blending our water so that we are within the state or federal guidelines. But those too take time, and to get those on board as well. But those are things that are being faced today with the city that you need to be aware of.
So just for clarification purposes, that water issue, are we saying that the fix is just new wells coming on board, or because I think this is a huge burden for development-wise, and what are we doing as a city for future development, and just making it harder on the developers coming in or whoever wants to come in, commercial, whatever. I just think it makes it's another, tie one hand behind the back, right? Because all the materials and cost and all that stuff's already high. Now we have another set of things that the city can't really, stand out amongst its other competing cities that are not having this problem.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, you kind of hit it on the nail. So what do we, it is a big burden. The other issue that we have is that we're in a critical overdraft. Our water basin our aquifer that we're dependent upon has been identified by the state of California as a critically overdrafted basin. So putting another well isn't always the answer. Maybe one well, and maybe we now have to go into finding means to do recharge to our aquifer so that we don't have a net loss, because we are having a large loss on an annual basis that needs to be accounted for. And if we don't take the corrective actions in regards to the basin and making sure that that basin gets to a point to where it's stabilized, then, sadly to say, again, the state of California will, step in and make those corrective measures for you. And that's the last thing you want to do, again, taking away your local autonomy. And so the city is and has to look at various different actions in trying to be more conservative in its water use, and that may be in the way we deal with some of our landscaping issues. It's perhaps how we, and some of the industrial operations we have here, certainly our largest water user today is Foster Farms. Are there ways to improve their production so that they're using less of our water source? We have two basically industries in our community that, in essence, take greater than 70% of our water.
The second one's who?
The second one is the textile. Yeah. So those are your largest water consumptions in our community, which leaves a very, very small percentage when you think about it left for everybody else in kind from a residential or business aspect. And so we have to look at it from a larger aspect than just by project component.
Has the management of Foster Farms, I'm sure they're aware of the water they take from the community. Are they looking at ways already without the city forcing them? Are they doing everything they currently can?
At this point in time, I cannot answer that. I have not been engaged in that dialogue at this point. They are in part a team player in our water supply analyses for our basin, our GSA. We're looking at, because it's not just municipalities we're having to, in the groundwater basin, we're looking at from both a municipality as well as agro and business. And so, but there are, you know, certainly there are actions now that we have to abide by because of the state in actions. And it's something that, you know, our general plan is going to be looking at just the same.
I have a question, Steve. Since you brought up, Gary, the Foster Farms, do they pay a set rate or do they pay by water usage, like a homeowner? Is that known to the public?
Great question, and I don't, but I'm happy to go ahead and dig that information and report that back
Yeah, I'm
to
just
you all.
curious if they have a set rate with the city or they have to pay for what they're using. Because if they're paying for what they're using, rather than if they go the other way, the city's definitely taking a beating.
Yeah, if the revenue source in comparison, yeah, and if you get a bulk rate, you know, because I use a volume and I've got a lesser rate to go with that charge. And I don't know at this very moment.
Yeah, and I don't know either. One other quick question then, Gary, and I forgot the terminology for, it's not a small house, but property owners with so much space in the yard can put in a small, I want to say BDU, I forgot the exact name.
ADU.
Is how many lots within the city limits are eligible to that? Does the city even know? Or has anybody looked at that? Because those could be people that want future development too.
In theory, all residential properties are eligible for that. The provision, of course, do you have a large enough land mass to satisfy the criteria, for example? The state, again, has outlined specifically for ADUs, the setbacks that are required for example, side yards. Typically in our residential, we have a 5-foot side yard setbacks. For an ADU, it's 4 feet. For a rear yard setback, typically you have a 15-foot or 10-foot. I don't know exactly the answer here with this community, but again, it's 4 feet. You still have to maintain an appropriate setback between the primary resident and the ADU, and that'll be 10 feet, and that's usually dictated because of the fire code to ensure that you've got fire protection and access and the like. So there are parameters towards that end, and then there's certain sizes that will dictate whether they're subject to impact fees or they're not. And when I say impact fees, that's exclusive of school fees. The school district can elect to either continue to bill them for it based on the square footage or exempt them from that. That's their discretion.
Okay,
And
two
then
more things. One of them, I think we took care of Foster Farms. Shopping carts, I could not find that addressed in the city codes. I may have missed it, but I couldn't find it. On social media, there's a lot of people that complain about the shopping carts all around on certain streets. Hamlet's one of them, it always pops up, where the carts are from Dollar General. I could not find where, and we're gonna get more of them with the new pink store gonna be opening pretty soon. I would think with the chair's permission, they need to bring it to the city's attention. They need to look at that ordinance. If there isn't one, they need to create one. All new businesses are gonna have shopping carts, they need to have them locked where they can't get out of their lot. And then any existing businesses that use them that don't have the lock should be given a time frame, like a year, they gotta have them. I mean, they're all over the city, and certain streets are worse than others. When you see them on social media, drive by and look at them, you call the managers, nothing gets done. But I just think certainly they're tired of seeing it on social media. It's like nobody's done anything.
Usually we see like Liberty, the old driver.
The Liberty, the owner himself drives
Yeah,
around
he
and picks
does,
him up
but
in his
that-
pickup. He's the
He's
only one, yeah.
designated, but he doesn't
Yes, he
have to,
is.
But he does it. But what about all the other ones that don't? Dollar
Right.
General? is a
Rite
good
Aid.
one, and we don't know what this new, Rite Aid's another one, and what about the new store? I know they're
Mm-hmm.
gonna have shopping carts now, that affects your neighborhood, my neighborhood possibly, the parks, I mean, that's just something that has to be looked at. And the other part, I haven't heard anything from the city and the bad publicity over the 45 days, no moratorium, no building, I know that was disapproved by city council. But the other part on that also, I lost my train of thought. What are they doing? They got the shopping carts that, I just think that needs to be addressed. But I don't know the bad publicity we received with the fire department possibly being closed here. That's a big part, I think that would be a big issue when people want to decide whether they want to live here. Then we don't have a local fire department anymore, and it possibly is going to be shared, we have to share our resources. I mean, that's thinking ahead, but somebody has to think about that. I mean, if it's true, we got a member of the fire department here, but no, it came up at a city council meeting, and if I heard correctly, they want to shut us down and make us pay, I forget how much money they quoted, but they were keeping Delhi. Well, now Delhi is smaller than us, okay? What does Delhi share that they want to pay, and they could have, and then they'd be responsible for us? I don't see the equity in that, where 40% of our calls are for the county. How many does Delhi do for the county? City council needs to be digging into that. Some of that goes back 2 or 3 years when we didn't get a tax sharing agreement with the prior council. But, I mean, just the publicity of that being posted and in the news, I can't see that helping us looking for more development. So I'm hoping the city council is digging into that and finding out what our options are. But go ahead, tell me, you're the expert, because you're on.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify something, just so you understand. So Delhi's in the unincorporated area, so they're a county. So even though Delhi has a name, they're a town, but they are Merced County. So the county fire department has to provide their protection because that's who is paying for it. For us in an incorporated city, our tax share agreement is what pays for our fire service, or with the shared agreement with the county. So the county fire department is here because we pay for that service. Well, with whatever agreement we had back in 1995. So what's happening right now is the county fire department has given a couple options to the board of supervisors for options on what they think is needed to continue providing services in the incorporated cities like Castine, Dos Palos, and us in Livingston. So right now that's what's been put forward. Is that going to happen? I don't know, but there's a lot of things that with the changes in requirements for staffing is really what's affecting what's going to go in our fire stations, because right now having one person at a fire station is really not sufficient for the safety of the firefighters that are providing the service. So it's going to take a little bit to figure out how that tax share agreement goes between all the municipalities that are within the fire department, Merced County Fire Department service.
I have nothing further to report.
All right, additional matters, item number 13, additional matters at the discretion of the chair. I don't have any additional items. I think we tackled quite a bit. Just kind of, talking and voicing our thoughts. So that was good, productive. Last, I'll open it up. Anything from any of the commissioners? No? All right, well, that, item number 14, that's adjournment, and we'll adjourn at 8:29.